Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation, where we shine a light on loss and grief and how it impacts our lives. We are here to provide hope, resources, and a community so no one feels alone in their grief. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation, where we shine a light on loss and grief and how it impacts our lives. My name is T.J. Jackson, and with me is my eldest brother, Taj Jackson. How are you doing, big bro?
What's going on, T?
What's going on, man?
Not a mucho.
Everything all right in your world?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so today's date is May 29th, 2024. And of course, we are live right now on YouTube and Facebook. But you may also be watching us, or I should say listening to us via the podcast. Mm-hmm. That is because each and every one of our episodes gets ingested into the podcast world, where you could find any and all of our episodes. So if you cannot watch us on Facebook or YouTube, whether it's live or on a replay, remember, you can always listen to us via the podcast. Mm-hmm. With all of that said, we are not licensed therapists. We are just ordinary people who've experienced loss in our lives. We've been impacted by it, and we like to think we have learned from it. And what we like to do here on the Power of Love is to share our opinions in an attempt to help you get through whatever it is you may be going through. Saying that, if you need professional help, we urge you to seek it. And to find it, please do not just rely on us and what we say or what our guests just say. So make sure you do your own research. Our goal here at the Power of Love show is just to propel you to ask questions and just to hear different perspectives on everything regarding loss, grief, and dealing with issues. So with all of that said, we like to start off our shows usually by talking about what we've been up to in the week. This is where I'll pass it over to Taj to inform us what he has been up to this last week or so. Taj, anything exciting in your world?
No, I just outside I heard a lawnmower mower, so I start panicking. If it does, I will move locations. But yeah, I mean, look, I think we were off last week, correct?
Yeah, it feels like it, Taj.
And so we got to have that trip. You know, I went on a road trip with my pops.
Yeah.
So 9-hour drive.
Wait. I got to cut you up. You're not filling it in correctly. We were all in Nashville. I was up in Nashville because I like to do my music up in Nashville. Terrell lives in Nashville.
Yes.
And my father wanted us to get together to maybe record. I say maybe because he hasn't said it, but to record something. I'll just say it like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to spill it? No.
Anyways, so Todd, you flew into where he lives, and you guys made a 10+ hour road trip to Nashville.
Yeah, 9.5, 10 hours. I mean, it was 10 hours after all the stops and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And how was that, Taj?
That was okay. First of all, the father-son bonding was great, incredible. That was what made everything worth it.
Nice.
I hadn't driven longer than Vegas for like the last 20 years. So,
which is a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, about 4.5, hour, 5-hour drive. And that for me was, I thought, my limit. So this is very, very interesting. I actually doubled my capacity. But why I'm saying that is just because I was dreading the trip only because of the drive. But now the amount of time I got to spend with Pops and talk and all that stuff, it was worth every second of it. So it was much needed in that way and all that stuff. So I was really happy after that trip and felt, very we always felt close to our Pops anyway. We're products of him. So, so that was
cool.
Then I got to see Terrell, of course, and that way in his habitat, and that was awesome as well.
Because that was your first time seeing him.
That's my first time in Nashville in a long time, in Tennessee in a long time, because of, I think we went with 3T way back.
Yeah, in the 90s.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever been back since then.
Well, so I love I love Nashville. I go every 4 months usually. So I see Terrell at least every 4 months in his habitat. So I was already experienced in that world, and I actually love it. I actually helped him coach a baseball game.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, he told me that. But with all that said, Taj, there was something I wanted to tell you. but that was last week. It was a really cool time. I mean, it was the first time in years that the four of us, the three brothers and my father, had been together, I think, in the
Yeah.
same room.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool. It really, really, our lives get so busy that we forget to do things like that. So I'm
We're
happy.
traveling different directions times. Yeah.
As for me, yesterday I got to go see grandma. So that was a beautiful,
How
uh,
great.
just a wonderful thing and a wonderful time. Grandma's such a special, wonderful person that, you know, I want to experience and be around her as much as I possibly can. She is in her mid 90s, at 94, Taj.
Mhm.
So still doing well, still grandma, being the sweet self she is, and the knowledgeable person that we all look up to. And it was just really cool to see grandma. So that was the highlight, at
Mhm.
least for the last several days for me, is seeing, because it had been some time since
Yeah.
so I'm
And
trying to
and
think.
just to speak for everyone, because everyone probably wondering, how is grandma?
She's doing well.
Okay.
She's doing well.
I
Yeah,
know that's gonna be a
she's doing
question.
well. She's, you know, grandma's also one who's very personal, and so if there's something going on, I don't think she would flat out tell us. But from what I can see, and my interactions with her, grandma's doing great.
Yeah.
And like I said, I love that person. She's such an important person, especially for us who lost our mother
Yeah.
at young ages. She's that maternal force
Yep.
in our lives. So grandma's always going to be that, that queen for me.
Yep. Same.
Um,
One quick
all,
thing, I
yeah,
guess.
go ahead. Yeah,
I
you
guess
just keep interrupting me, but go ahead, man. It's
of
fine.
course. Well, I have to make sure we get all this in. We missed a week. I think it is. It's Auntie Latoya and Auntie Ruby's
Oh,
birthday week.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, Taj.
So
So they share a birthday, and then like 3 weeks prior, two others share a birthday, right?
I think Uncle Jackie and Grandma, right? Is it that one?
Yeah. Yeah. Grandma and Uncle Jackie share a birthday, and then Auntie Latoya and Auntie Reba share a birthday.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go. All right. Okay, Taj, anything else we need to discuss, talk about? We're ready to rock and roll? Cool. All right. So this is going to be a great show, ladies and gentlemen. On today's episode of the Power of Love show, we are thrilled to have not one, but two extraordinary guests. Dr. Mekel Harris, who you may remember from her first appearance on the Power of Love show back in 2021. And we also have Janet Gwilliam-Wright joining us for the first time to share Janet's first time, but they are both joining us to share their insights on mental health, grief, and their groundbreaking work with Bloomwell Partners, LLC. Dr. Mekel Harris received a bachelor's degree in psychology from Baylor University, a master's degree in psychology from Houston Baptist University, and a PhD in clinical school psychology from University of Houston. Further, she completed her pre-doctoral internship and 2-year postdoctoral fellowship at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Since then, Dr. Harris has served in higher education along with community and hospital-based mental health programs. She currently works in private practice as a licensed psychologist and CEO of Harris Psychological Services, LLC, offering mental health support across the lifespan. Dr. Harris also provides training, education, and consultation to organizations around the globe, focused on an array of mental health themes. Finally, she is co-founder of Bloomwell Partners, LLC, a consulting firm that equips corporate entities with the skills necessary to afford grief-informed leadership and care within the workplace. In June 2016, she authored a memoir, Relaxing into the Pain, My Journey into Grief and Beyond. Throughout the past 2 years, Dr. Harris has created the Grief Anatomy Toolkit, an ebook and mini course, an 8-week immersive online course, Reimagining Life After Loss, Mindful Grieving, a therapeutic curriculum for coping with the grief and loss, Cortisol Coping and Conversation Gathering, a 4-week gathering focused on the intersection of grief and the body, and Grieving with Hope. She currently serves as Vice President of the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee Board. In her personal time, Dr. Harris enjoys spending time with her family, traveling the globe, writing, volunteering in her community, and collecting all things butterflies. Free time. I don't know, Dr. Harris. I don't know what free time we're talking about with those accolades. It's amazing what you have done. Our other guest, the one and only Janet Gwilliam-Wright, she brings over 20 years of experience in leading large organizational changes and tackling complex policy issues. She is a prominent figure in the grief and loss community, having founded the Mother Love Project, a global platform for motherless daughters. Janet holds a Master of Arts in Public Administration from Queen University. She resides in Ottawa, Ontario, with her partner Megan and their 2 daughters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without much further ado, please welcome the 2 and only, I should say, not 1 and only, Dr. Mekel Harris and Janet Gwilliam-Wright. Yay!
Hello. What a wonderful introduction.
Yes. You both have accomplished so much. You know, I like to think I'm an accomplished young man, but you know, when I read a bio like that, you all are spectacular and doing your part in making our world a better place. So behalf of my brother Taj and our whole foundation, a big ups and thank you to both of you ladies.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I didn't butcher any names or any schools or any organizations or anything, right?
No.
Okay, let's get that out of the way. All right. Okay.
Absolutely perfect.
All right. So, Dr. Mekel, I'm going to start with you because you were on our show before, back in 2021, September of 2021, that is. Now, since that appearance, what significant developments or new insights have emerged in your work with grief and mental health?
Okay, first of all, amazing intro. Thank you all for the invitation back on the show.
Absolutely.
So since 2021, this is a little controversial. Within the field of grief and loss, there's actually been a new diagnosis that you all may or may not be familiar with, prolonged grief disorder. And it's created a lot of buzz and frustration in the grief and loss community because it's sort of pathologizing grief, or it has the potential to do that, which we've got to be careful with. So as a clinician, of course, as you meet with clients, you're gathering history and providing support. And I think one of the main things is to remember that grief is a normal and natural response to loss, and there's no time limit. So with prolonged grief disorder, we have to ask some questions if that even makes sense. So I'll stop there because I think that has been the main development in this community since 2021.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Janet, I'm going to go to you. Can you share more about the Mother Love Project that you are a part of and its impact on the global community of motherless daughters?
Absolutely. I was about to mark the 25th anniversary of my mom's death from breast cancer. She died in 1995. So the 25th anniversary was in June of 2020. And I really felt that I needed to create a space. I needed to find a space where I could share my story and allow other people to share their stories too. And I looked around and I really didn't see anything out there that would help me to do that. And so I thought, well, it's not there. I'll create it myself. So I started a website and I called it the Mother Love Project. I don't know where that came from. It just sort of came to me one day. And I started an Instagram account and put up just a note to say, hey, if you want to share your story, I will post it on the website. And since June of 2020, over 100 and almost 115 women from around the world have shared their stories of love and loss and grief. And it's become a really powerful memorial to our moms. And it's a way for us to tell our stories.
Todd, you wanna select the comment you highlighted?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, of course you put me on the spot now.
Yeah, come on, man.
One,
All right, there you go. Jody Gomez. Hey, what's up, Jody? Jody says, motherless daughters have helped me tremendously when I lost my mom. I love the work you're all doing. Ciao. So I bet that feels good
Thank
when you
you.
hear something like that, Janet. So
It really
that's incredible.
does. It really does. I think, as you know, grief can be. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please finish. Grief can be.
Well, I was just going to say, I think all of us in our own way have experienced that grief is so isolating. And when we reach out and we have these points of connection and community, and this is the beauty of social media, when my mom died, the internet didn't even exist in 1995. There was no connection. There was no community really around this. There was no conversation about grief. So just to be able to have these, your beautiful show, your foundation, the work that you all are doing is so beautiful. And the work that Mekel and I are trying to do in this space is really brought about through social media and through these global platforms that we're able to access our community of grievers. It's really powerful.
It really is. And when we started the show back in 2015, our goal was just to educate and inform, those who are first dealing with, a monumental loss or grief. But it has done that and more. And I think the and more part is the community it's built, because we're all going to have to deal with significant loss. And I think all of us, whether we know it or not, will do better when we understand we're not alone in our grief, because that isolation is tremendously difficult to get through, and something that I strongly feel should be avoided. So we were able to build a somewhat of a community, not only here but in the Facebook group and even in the Music Hill classrooms we do. There's communities being built, and that's something we've learned is the power of community.
Yes.
So I appreciate what y'all are doing.
Yeah.
Now, can you share the story behind the founding of Bloomwell Partners, LLC? And I'm going to ask what inspired you both to create a consulting firm focused on grief and loss in the workplace.
I'm happy to start this off. My dad passed away in March 2020, and I had been on Instagram, and I was just really tired of just liking and making a little comment. You talked about community, and I thought, you know what? I want to have live conversations with people in the grief and loss space to connect and not feel so isolated. Plus, there was COVID. So I was literally sliding into people's inboxes, DMs, saying, hey, I'm a psychologist. I read your bio on Instagram. Like, would you want to have a live conversation? And I can't believe how many people said yes. Janet was one of them. And we went live and had a beautiful conversation about the Mother Love Project, the work that she's done. And I'll let Janet pick it up from the story of how we then decided to partner together for our business. So.
Yes. And I really wanted to work in this space. I've been a leader of managers for a long time in different organizations. And I knew that managers are struggling. And this is one of the areas where managers really struggle. Because we don't train managers to support grieving employees. They don't have these skills, except we expect them to do it well. And, I'm not a mental health professional. And so I really wanted to partner with Mekel because, well, she's amazing. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, as a licensed psychologist, we really bring our different skill sets to the table. And so I messaged her one day and said, would you be interested in doing something with me? Do you want to partner on something? I didn't really know what it was, but we joined forces and that's how Bloomwell was born.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's so awesome what you're all doing. I think workplace is somewhere where a lot of people will mask or try to, not really dive into what's going on or try to ignore.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's because of the way historically work has been seen, where it's like a non-negotiable. You can't You know, you have to be so rigid and get your job done.
Yep.
So I think the more people like you all who are doing things to let people know it's okay to grieve, and ask for help at work, or because in my opinion, it's going to make them more effective workers. So I hope all CEOs and all, you know, businesses understand that grief is part of our lives, and it's something that we can't just shovel away. And I think if we could prepare our workers to deal with it the best way they can, they'll go home and home life will be better, and it'll just all around be a better thing for not only the human, but for their work, which is what I'm sure most of the bosses care for. So I love what y'all are doing.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything on that? Is there anything else you would add to that?
I was just going to say, you know, I was trained for my master's degree in, I don't know what year it was, but I remember sitting in class and having this discussion around, you know, bringing your full self versus being a psychologist, right? And the messaging was like, when you walk into the room, your personal life is sort of at home. So to your point, TJ, around leaving grief at home, but going to work, it's impossible. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that you're not going to bring your full humanity. And so that is so critical that we realize, like, wherever you go, there you are. And as organizations learn that, and we equip them with tools to be able to support grieving employees, as you said, there's a ripple effect, not only for the individual, but for the entire organization and beyond. So yeah, really important point.
Now I have a question. Someone like me, it's not that I'm smarter than the average person, but that sounded awful, but I've experienced life and I've experienced serious grief. How do you convince someone of that need who hasn't had that serious loss? Is that been challenging for you guys, or is it one of those things where that hasn't been a hurdle? Because that would be my opinion. What will be your challenges convincing these, you know, bosses that grief is a real thing, and how you cope and deal with it is super important to success again in the workplace and for your employees. Employees. There you go. So
I'll let you answer that. I would say, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that there are some organizations that get it. There are leaders in organizations that either have a personal experience with grief, or they've witnessed somebody who is important to them go through a grief experience, and so that they understand the impact that has on a person's life. I do think that there's been a really big shift in the conversation around mental health in the workplace and well-being, particularly because of COVID and what we've all been through since the pandemic and through the pandemic, that this is a really natural tie into that conversation, that we have this opportunity to talk about grief and loss in a way that really aligns with well-being and wellness and mental health. And so I think that people who understand, you know, that business imperative and allowing employees that opportunity to really show up at work in a way that is authentic, but that can also be productive, I think that those are organizations that are very progressive. And we do see organizations who are in that space for sure. I think that it may be novel for some folks, but when you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. But I'll let Mekel add to that.
Yeah, I'll just add that, you know, I think that historically organizations, workplaces are reactive. So, you know, there's a crisis at work and then all of a sudden everyone's mobilizing. And to your point, TJ, it makes a hard sell because number one, grief is invisible. And you can't always tell that a person's suffering. And so I think when we approach organizations, we're trying to help them set up a preventive plan, because we know death is universal. And everyone in the world is going to walk through a loss, even if it's not the loss of a person. We've all experienced other losses that we can relate to. And so that proves really interesting as we interact with organizations.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant what y'all doing, and I think it's going to be a standard thing, a standard practice for organizations. It will.
Yeah.
It may take time, but I actually don't think it is. I think what Janet was saying is right. There's been a nice shift to the mental health and helping others. And I think there's been some results and proof of the improvement in the workers and in their life and even the work they're doing. So I think it's awesome.
For sure.
Now, Dr. Mekel, I have a question for you. With your global experience in providing training and consultation, what are some like universal themes in grief you've encountered? I mean, we have listeners and watchers from all around the world. So what are some universal things you would say, just whether they're, themes or you could also, and then I'm going to ask, how do these themes influence your approach at Bloomwell?
Yeah. So I think one of the universal themes is the importance of rituals, right? So if you think about grief and loss, like no one wakes up on any given day and says, this is the day I'm going to experience a massive sudden loss, right? And as grievers, we crave certainty and structure and routine. And so I think that it's important, and what I've seen around the world is just the importance of rituals and setting up rituals that are individualistic and also culturally specific, so that the person can really remain connected to their loved one in whatever way is meaningful for them. To your second question, how does that inform our work with Bloomwell? One of the beautiful things that Janet and I were really intentional about was not making this sort of a canned grief education training. We offer live training, and then we're also working one-on-one through live coaching sessions with organizations so that we can really dive into the question of what is the culture of that organization. So we're sort of bringing in this understanding of rituals and culturally relevant intervention to the organization, which really individualizes it for that specific place. And that's a really beautiful part of the work that we do.
That's great.
Yeah.
Todd, I have a question, but I don't want to hog it all. Did you have a question, or you want me to
say your question first and then?
All right. Okay. Dr. Mekel, you the first half of the question, you talked about rituals, right? Is there any rituals you feel are, I don't want to say stronger than others, but that in your opinion would be or seem to help others more? Are there any certain rituals that any one of us can grasp onto and apply in our own lives to help us succeed if we're struggling with a loss?
Yeah, so I won't say that any ritual is better or worse than the other. I'll answer this by sharing a personal ritual that I have.
Great.
So this might sound a little paradoxical, but I actually schedule time in the week to grieve. Like there's an hour in the week, and it's always the same, for me to think about both of my parents, the loss of my pet. And when I do that, it's very structured in the way that I do it. I'll usually light a candle just to sort of create a calming environment. I have my dad's music box that he gave me that I'll play for a few minutes. And then there's a note that my mom wrote a couple of years before she died to me that is just such a reflection of who she is. And some of the times that I enter into that space, it's a total tear fest. Like I'm wiping up tears off the floor. Some days I just really feel a sense of gratitude for the parents that I had. That's my ritual. So I think that the best ritual is the one that makes you feel like you can witness and give a moment to reflect on your own grief. And that's personally relevant to whoever or whatever your loss experience was.
That's a great answer. Okay, love it. Thank you for all of that.
Yeah.
Now, Janet, I'm going to come to you. With over 20 years of experience in leading large organizational changes, what challenges have you faced in integrating grief-informed practices into workplace policies?
Yeah, so there is a lot of fear, I think, on the part of senior leaders that if you start to really open up a lot of policies and a lot of practices, that it's just going to cascade through the organization in a way that isn't going to make sense to employees. Just changing one policy or one practice really looks sort of like a throwaway, right? Employees can see through that right from the very beginning. So what Mekel and I do is we really help organizations to understand that what they're doing already is probably great, but it can be improved upon. And so we look at gaps and we look at what are the pieces that could be knitted together more holistically, and then explain that to employees, because so much of this is about change, and it's about communicating and navigating change for employees. Talk to organizations about what's working and what's not working, and how we can help them fill the gaps. So that's really the biggest challenge, is when you're trying to explain that change to organizational leaders, not to overwhelm them, and then not to make it look like a throwaway, because employees are going to think, oh, it's just another mental health initiative, or it's just the employee assistance program, and that's not going to do me any good, right? And so when organizational leaders want to communicate care, because that's what we're in the business of, creating compassionate work cultures, and that can be a mindset shift for some leaders. But when we look at what they're already doing, we can say, look at this great base that you have to build on, and then go from there. And that really helps them get their heads around, okay, what can this look like for employees? And it's not so daunting a change, I think, in the end.
That's great. Yeah. So what's your vision for the future of Bloomwell Partners? So like looking 5-10 years down the line, what do you see? What do you want?
I love this question. Yeah, I'm a visionary, so I love that. I think, number one, that this is a household normal conversation, right? That we can enter the conversation, whether it's in the workplace or just in any space. And this is just commonplace. The same way we talk about, whatever day to day, it's just a commonplace conversation that doesn't rattle folks because of the universality of it. And I hope that Janet and I are literally getting paid to travel around the world and offer these sorts of trainings and consultative support in a much grander fashion. Yeah. We can put on our superhero capes and fly around the world and do support.
It's needed. It's needed. For sure. I love it, Janet.
Yes. Everything that Mekel said, and I definitely want a cape with my name on it. And I want it to be bedazzled. I want to be able to go with my dear friend into organizations, and I want to, exactly what she said, I want to normalize conversations about death, about grief, about loss. We're all living this. We've all, if we're not living it now, we're going to live it. And I want to be able to empower managers to feel confident and capable in their skills to have these conversations, because the worst thing that can happen to an employee is they are in their darkest moment and they're coming to their manager to say, I'm in my darkest moment, and they get turned away, or they get cast off, or they're, completely sidelined. I don't want managers, because it doesn't feel good, and it doesn't make them feel like they're doing a good job, because managers, they want to do a good job. They want to support their people. I think that managers have the opportunity to learn these skills, and that's what Mekel and I want to do around the world. Because as we know, grief is universal. Grief is global. It doesn't discriminate. And so we want to be able to be globally minded and culturally relevant and inclusive, and have these conversations around the world with organizations to empower their managers to do a good job when they're faced with an employee who is really struggling through their darkest time.
I think it's great what y'all are doing. I really do. I had an overlay up a little earlier. I'm pulling it back up so everyone can see the Instagram account. It's at Bloomwell Partners. growwithbloomwell.com is the website.
Mm-hmm.
And cultivating more passionate and grief-informed workspaces, one organization at a time. I love that. I think it's much needed in our world, and I think the time is right. And this is, I think you guys are doing a true blessing to any organization that has you guys on their side. So keep doing your thing. Taj, was there something you
No,
wanted to
I mean,
ask?
look, I love that you guys complement each other so well in that way, and also just the idea of what you guys are doing and attacking it head on in terms of that corporate structure in that, because that is interesting. I've never thought about that in that way of really going in there and teaching them about grief, and because it's some people's second home is their workplace.
That's right.
Or they sometimes spend more time at work than they do at home.
Yes.
So, I just think it's brilliant. And
exactly.
TJ knows I always appreciate people that find that niche thing that is needed in that way. And yes, I mean, when we first lost our mom, there was nothing, as Dr. Mekel, you said as well. Nothing. We had to search high and low for anything on our mom, anything on grief, just in general. And so I just love the idea that you guys are taking it to the next level and finding other things and filling those gaps. It's just it's brilliant. So
well, I want to add something. So just to sort of end with some data, if you look at organizations around the world, the normal bereavement leave is anywhere from 48 to 72 hours.
Wow.
Like, think about that. Someone dies on a Monday, like my dad did.
Shocking.
And Wednesday, you're getting a phone call. Hey,
can you come back?
When can we expect your return to work? I mean, it's insane to think that we have 2 days to grasp the gravity of a major loss and be expected to return to the work environment and be normal. So I think part of this too is how can we affect change in a way that really influences policies around bereavement leave, because there's a lot of work to be done with that.
I have another question, as TJ said that.
Let me read Rita's comment, and then Taj will hit your question. Rita says, I'm an elementary school teacher. I had 2 months before I had to go back to work after my mother passed away. It wasn't long enough. I kept breaking down. 3 to 5 days is not long enough. So exactly what you were saying, Dr. Mekel. All right, Taj, go ahead, bud.
I was gonna piggyback that with have you guys found that it's cultural, or this different countries have better understanding of grief, and maybe their leave is longer, and it might be something like Canada or America in terms of the capitalist aspect of it?
You want to answer that, Janet?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are definitely, we know in the Nordic countries, they do social policy better than everybody else does. The Nordic countries have longer leave times. Canada and the US, it is not federally regulated in either country. I wish I could be a smug Canadian and say, oh, yes, we have wonderful bereavement leave here. We don't. Again, it's very much about the province or territory, similarly with your state system. It is typically 48 to 72 hours here. So there are definitely countries that are extending their leaves. The UK is looking at extending federally their leave times. So, I mean, that we do globally have examples where this is done better. I think in the Western industrialized world, it's very short. It's very hit and miss. Now, certainly we've seen there are organizations, I can think of, major organizations in the United States. I think Delta Airlines is one of them, super progressive, where they've taken bereavement and pushed it into the culture of their organization. So it's not just that they are allowing their folks to take longer leave times, but they're actually backing that up with policies and practices that help people reintegrate into the workplace when they've come back. And that's the crucial time. The bereavement leave, yes, it's so important. But then when you're coming back into an organization, that's where stuff really falls apart. So, I think that's really where Mekel and I are trying to go, is to, again, look at this holistically and try to start with the bereavement leave, making sure that our organizations understand that, no, 72 hours just isn't going to cut it. And absolutely, to your point, Taj, we definitely have global examples where countries are doing this better than we are in North America. Absolutely.
Wow.
I have one more question for the both of you, but I'm gonna ask Dr. Mekel if you don't mind answering first.
Yeah.
For our listeners who may be dealing with grief or working in environments that could benefit from a grief-informed approach, what advice would you give them, and how can they start making a difference in their own workplace?
That is such a great question. I think that this is going to feel like I'm putting the onus only on the grieving person, but I think if you are a grieving employee, to externalize your grief. As I mentioned before, grief is invisible. So a lot of people are hurting inside, but they're smiling on the outside. And one of the most important things that you can offer to your community, to organization, or to your organization or friends, family, is to let them see what's on the inside. And it doesn't have to always be crying. I think, TJ, earlier on, you were talking about people who are just hyper focusing on work. That's also possibly a grief response that's not necessarily helpful. So being honest about what it is that you're experiencing and being comfortable in the discomfort of those conversations with people within the organization.
Nice. Anything you want to
Yeah.
add to that, Janet?
And I'll take it from the other perspective. Yeah, I'll take it from the colleague's perspective. So you have a colleague who's experienced a significant loss. They're coming back saying to yourself, oh boy, I don't know what to say. I'm uncomfortable. Should I say anything? The answer is yes, you should say something. Acknowledge that person's grief. It's so important. Help them to feel less invisible. Help them to create connection. Reach out, be proactive. The best thing that you can say is, I heard about what happened and I'm so sorry. I'm here for you if you want to talk. That's all you have to say. That person is going to hear you with love and compassion and kindness. You're not going to make them uncomfortable. You're not going to remind them of their loss, because let me tell you, they're already thinking about it. They're thinking about it all the time. You're not reminding them. But by creating that extended hand, it really goes such a long way to breaking down barriers, breaking down those walls, and creating that compassionate work environment that we all talk about, but people don't seem to know how to do it. Well, it's very simple. Just simple gestures, simple extensions of kindness and compassion. And, I think that this is how we move the needle. And I would also say too, if you have a colleague who has experienced something that you personally have not, or even you have experienced it, everybody's experiences are different. Just do some homework. Google can be your friend. How do I support a grieving colleague? How do I, what things can I say? And if you really are struggling with that, there's lots of amazing resources out there. And Mekel and I are always here to help with that. We've got great resources as well. So, there's lots of ways that you can help your grieving colleague.
Yeah.
I'll add one thing, and that is, if you don't know what to say as a colleague, it's okay to say, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And that's it. That is one of the most powerful gestures, is being present.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to have the words to say.
I thank you both for saying that and sharing that, because it's hard for people to know what to say to even a friend, or someone that they're so comfortable with. Sometimes people, like what you said, Janet, sometimes people won't say anything because they don't want to say anything that brings more pain to the grieving person. But I love what you said, Janet, where they're already thinking about it. Right. So you just acknowledging him can go a long way,
yeah.
and you're opening up a possibility for them to divulge more or not.
That's
So
right.
I thank you both for saying that, and
That's right.
even saying it in the work environment. It's okay to say, and it's encouraged to say.
Yeah.
Because then if well, she's just a colleague, she's just a worker, or he's just a, but that doesn't,
Absolutely.
that's still the right thing to do. Is just
Yeah.
if you're thinking about them, check on them, and let them know you're thinking about them. And if you
Mhm.
don't, as Dr. Mekel said, if you don't know what to say,
Yes.
then say, I don't really know what to say, but I just want you to know I'm here for you. That's a
That's right.
very powerful thing,
Yep.
and especially for someone who's going through it. So I love those answers. So thank you
Yeah.
both.
You're welcome.
Taj Jackson, there's a couple of things, overlays that I need to share. And this is kind of, everything we've been talking about is pretty much Bloomwell Partners. Again, I'm going to share that. Go to Instagram at Bloomwell Partners. Give them a follow, learn more, talk to your boss. If you are a boss, try to incorporate Bloomwell into your organization. Or go to growwithbloomwell.com, which is the website. Again, and they didn't tell me to say this or anything like that. I just know that this is a secret weapon. Is if you're gonna have, everyone's gonna experience loss and grief, and if we don't take care of it the proper way or the best way we can, from a business standpoint, your workers' minds are going to be elsewhere. So there's a healthy way for them to recover or get through what they're going through, and professional help's going to help you get there. So I love what you all are doing. With that said, I wanted to give each of you, I'm going to put up an overlay, and I want to know if each of you'll understand the overlay, but I want to know if each of you will just talk about what I'm putting up. I'll give a little preview. Let me just start. Okay. Dr. Mekel has a book called Relaxing into the Pain, My Journey into Grief and Beyond. It's available on Amazon. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can see Dr. Mekel's Instagram is at Dr. Mekel, Mekel. And her website is mekelharrisphd.com. Did I get all that right, Dr. Mekel?
You nailed it yet again.
Okay. So now I would just like for you to just talk to us real quick, a minute or so,
Yeah.
what Relaxing into the Pain is about, what the book is about.
Yeah, this was inspired by an interaction that I had with my therapist after my mom died in 2012. So I was that person who said, I don't want to be part of the grief club. And I did everything possible to outrun grief. So I was sitting in this therapy appointment, just feeling all sorts of things, but not wanting to really go into it. And my therapist, who really beautiful, probably one of the most just amazing professionals I've ever worked with, really firmly yet compassionately said, Mekel, what would it look like if you relaxed into the pain of your mom's death? And that was the impetus for the book, right? As we resist things, we actually increase our suffering. And when we relax into it, not that we don't feel suffering, but we're suffering less. So my book is around how to sort of lean into that in a compassionate way so that you can continue to thrive and grow as you grieve.
Yeah, I love that. Relaxing into the pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
It is.
And it's not something we would naturally feel we can, or there's no guilt in relaxing into the pain. I like that.
That's right.
Beautiful. Okay. And then Janet, your turn. Boom. Mother Love Project. The project is a place for motherless daughters to share their memories and grief. It is a living memorial to our mothers. It's a love letter to our resilience and strength as women, leaders, partners, mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. It is a love letter to our mothers, regardless of how they lived or how they died. They were ours, and we loved them in our way. This is a place to tell our stories in our own words. This is Janet's Mother Love Project. Instagram is at Mother Love Project, and the website is motherloveproject.com.
Yes.
So Janet, do you want to just talk about what exactly is Mother Love Project? We touched on it in the intro, but I want to make sure you get some focus on Mother Love Project on the show as well.
my goodness.
It's okay. You take your time. I know there's a delay.
So sorry, I'm having a coughing fit.
Uh-oh.
Yes, the project is.
Okay. Oh, you want us to buy some time for you, Janet? Janet's going through coughing a little.
So sorry.
It's okay. We could buy you some time.
Beautiful stories on there. The women are the most, and they're just, you know, when my mom died, and maybe you can relate to this, you three, you know, there was this huge hole in my heart that I just thought would never close. And doing this project has helped me close that heart, you know, that hole in my heart. Every time I post a story, every time I connect, that hole gets a little bit smaller. It brings me so much joy and gratitude that, you know, I'm able to do this work, and brought me to Mekel and to you all today. And so I'm just filled with joy that I'm able to do that. And so please visit the project page. And if any of your listeners today come to the site and want to learn more, please feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in contributing your stories on the Mother Love Project Instagram page. So thank you.
Great. Okay, cool. I think we are we are right at that time. So I think we're at that moment where we're gonna pass it over to both of our guests to give us the final word. It can be on topic, it could be off topic, completely up to you both. But the floor is yours. We're gonna start with Dr. Mekel. What would you want to leave our community with? Again, it could be on topic, on the grief, loss, but it doesn't have to be. It could be anything you want it to be.
I would say that grief is such a complex and all-consuming experience. And sometimes we forget that even as we grieve, we're living. And so if you're watching this, it's okay to grieve, yes. And it's okay to live beyond your loss, because you have a contribution to make in the world. And your life will only be expressed through the work that you do. So grieve and live, both and.
Nice. And Janet, are you ready for yours? I don't need to go through the whole spiel again. Okay, what do you want to leave our community with?
No, I'm ready. You're not alone. There's a whole world of grievers out there who see you and validate you and hold you in their hearts, even though you may not be connected to them. Maybe you're surrounded by people who disenfranchise your grief or deny that it exists. That's their problem. It's not yours. Your grief is your grief. Own it. It's valid. And know that you're connected to a whole bunch of other people who can really, really are feeling what you're going through. So don't feel like you're by yourself.
Great. Okay. Taj, anything else I need to say or you want to say before we wrap?
Not really. I mean, this was a very interesting episode for me, just in general, because we seldom have two guests on. So when we do, for me, it's kind of, but you guys complement. It's like one brain and one mission, and I love that aspect of it. Even though you guys have both expertise in certain things, so it's just I'm watching how you guys work, but also I always say this with whoever we have as guests, and just thank you so much for doing what you're doing and being in that space, because yes, when you know, all of us have expressed that we didn't have the resources back then we wished we would have had, but you guys are creating them now for people, and I think I commend you guys for that, and that's where I'll leave it in that way.
Well said, bro. Well said. And I've said it earlier in the show that I love what y'all are doing. I think it's so needed.
So nice.
It's not only needed, but it's massively needed, and I hope it all these organizations, and more companies will understand it.
Yes.
and come on board with Bloomwell. I'm going to show the overlay one more time, just so we have the information out. Instagram at Bloomwell Partners, and growwithbloomwell.com is the website you can go to learn more. There's a couple of quotes I want to highlight from our guest today, Carol, or from our community, I should say. Carol says, grief happens to all of us. That is very, very true. When we are talking about rituals, Miss Silent Siren says, my ritual is buying a scratch off lotto ticket. Mom used to play them. I always buy one on her birthday and her heaven day. I love that, Tiffany. I think that's brilliant. And then Linda says, it's important to have colleagues or close friends that you can trust when dealing with grief. And she also adds, just being there for a person is very important. Yes. So very, very cool. We've started to close our show with some comments from the community. So those were three of our stronger ones. The three that were really cool, I should say. I think that's it, Taj. I think we can wrap up, unless either one of you have anything else you want to share. Did we miss anything? Did we say everything? Are we good?
Yeah, no, thank you all so much. Y'all are fantastic. It just feels like we're sitting in a living room just talking.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're relaxing.
So thank you so much.
All right. We are going to close out the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
You are more than welcome, Janet and Dr. Mekel. We are going to close out. We will be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Please be safe, y'all, and thanks for watching. Adios.